Influence. It's not some kind of magic. It's a science. And once you understand it, it's like discovering a secret superpower you never even knew you had. So in this explainer, we're going to unlock it.
Do you want to sell sugared water for the rest of your life? Or do you want to come with me and change the world? Hello to all viewers of my channel. That right there is the legendary question Steve Jobs asked Pepsi executive John Scully. It's one of the most powerful examples of influence in business history. Jobs didn't list a single benefit, no salary, no perks. He completely reframed the choice. It became about legacy versus mediocrity. And of course, it worked. Scully left Pepsi for Apple. That is the power of influence we're about to unpack.
Okay, so to really get a grip on influence, you first have to understand who you're actually talking to. And trust me, it's not who you think. The big secret is that our brain has two systems running all the time, and one of them is way, way more powerful than the other. So meet your two brains. On one hand, you've got the judge. This is the logical, analytical part of you, the one that carefully weighs the pros and cons. But the real boss, the one calling the shots, that's the alligator brain. It's ancient, it's emotional, and it is unbelievably fast. It makes these snap judgments based on pure gut feeling. And get this, research shows it makes the vast majority of our decisions before our conscious judge brain even has a chance to chime in. And this brings us to a really crucial idea, the bite zone. So picture the alligators down at Florida's Gatorland Park. When the keepers toss out meat, the gators don't really chase after it. No, they only snap if it lands directly in front of their mouth, right in their bite zone. Well, your alligator brain is exactly the same. An idea has to be ridiculously simple and super easy to act on. Otherwise, it just won't bite. Let's see how this plays out in the real world. You probably remember the 5-a-day campaign, right? It was this huge multi-million-dollar push to get us all to eat healthier. The logic seemed totally sound. Just give people the facts, and of course, they'll change their behavior. It was a perfectly designed argument aimed right at that logical judge brain. So what happened? An absolute catastrophe. Awareness of the message went up by 400%, which for marketers is a massive win. But here's the kicker. The actual consumption of fruits and vegetables dropped by 14%. People ate less healthy food. Why? Because the campaign told people what to do, but it never made it easy. It just wasn't in the alligator's bite zone. So if bombarding people with facts doesn't work, what does? Well, let's look at a technique that talks directly to the alligator brain's programming. And it all starts with tackling the one thing we all dread, rejection. And I mean this literally. It's not just a saying. Neuroscientists put people in fMRI scanners and had them play a simple ball-tossing video game. When the other players in the game suddenly started ignoring them, the parts of their brain that lit up were the exact same areas that register physical pain. Your brain processes being left out like an actual physical injury. No wonder we try to avoid it so much. Okay, so knowing how deep that fear of rejection runs, we can actually approach persuasion in a totally new way. It's a classic technique from the psychologist Robert Cialdini, and it's called the door-in-the-face technique. It sounds a little aggressive, I know, but it is so effective, and it all comes down to a really simple two-step process. Cialdini's team showed how this works perfectly. They went out onto a college campus with a request. To one group of students, they asked, "Hey, would you be willing to chaperone a group of juvenile delinquents on a day trip to the zoo?" But for the second group, they asked a different question first. They asked, "Would you be willing to volunteer as a counselor for 2 hours a week for the next 2 years?" Now, of course, the students almost all said no to that insane 2-year commitment. And right after they did, the researchers followed up with their real request. Okay, I get it. Well, how about just chaperoning them for 1 afternoon at the zoo? The result? The students who said no to the huge request first were 3 times more likely to say yes to the zoo trip. That initial rejection made the second, smaller request feel like no big deal at all. This brings us to probably one of the most powerful tools of influence there is, framing. Remember how Steve Jobs didn't talk about a job, he talked about changing the world? Well, how you frame an idea completely changes how that alligator brain sees it. Just look at what happened when Google tried to roll out Meatless Mondays in its company cafes. It was a good idea, right? Healthier for people, better for the planet. But it was framed as a loss. The message was, we are taking away your meat. And the alligator brain hates losing something it thinks it already has. So what happened? Employees revolted. They held a protest barbecue right outside the cafeteria. The whole program got shut down immediately.
Now, let's flip that and look at Beyond Meat. They didn't frame their product as the meat you can't have, or even as health food. They framed it entirely as a gain. Here's a delicious, amazing new burger that gives you all the juicy satisfaction you crave. By focusing on what you gain, great taste, instead of what you lose, they just bypassed all that resistance and built a global powerhouse. Same basic goal as Google, but a totally different frame and a totally different result. Of course, influence isn't always used for good. These powerful psychological tools can absolutely be turned into a form of dark arts for manipulation. So let's really quickly build up your defense shield. The number one strategy of any con artist, whether it's Bernie Madoff or just some email scammer, is to create what experts call an emotional fog. They use really intense emotions, like greed or fear or excitement or urgency, to completely bypass your rational judge brain. Once you're inside that fog, your impulsive alligator brain is running the whole show. So your best defense is just learning to recognize these red flags. Watch out for that feeling of extreme urgency that tries to force you into a quick decision. Be super wary of anyone guaranteeing over-the-top success. If an offer seems way too good to be true, that's your judge brain screaming a warning. And if you feel this wave of intense emotion or heavy social pressure, that's your cue. Just step back, take a breath, and let that emotional fog clear out. So you see, influence isn't about pulling tricks on people. It's about understanding human psychology. It's really just a neutral tool, kind of like a hammer. You can use it to build something incredible, or you can use it to tear things down. It's a superpower, and now you know the basics of how it works. The principles are pretty simple when you break them down. Talk to the intuitive alligator brain. Make your ideas super easy to act on. Frame them as a gain, and understand the hidden power of a well-placed no. So the only question left is the one you see right here. Now that you know the tools, what idea will you bring to life? Subscribe to the channel and like, and also suggest your topics for future videos in the comments.